Picture this: Istanbul, 1465. Construction workers are building a massive palace complex on a hill overlooking the Bosphorus. This will be Topkapı Palace, the heart of the Ottoman Empire for nearly 400 years. From here, sultans will rule 3 continents, millions of people, one of the most powerful empires in history. But Topkapı is not just a palace, it is a fortress, a prison, a harem, a treasury, an execution ground. Behind its beautiful walls and gardens, dark things happened. Things most tourists walking through today have no idea about. Murders, betrayals, mothers poisoning rivals, brothers strangling brothers, women wielding more power than kings. This is the story of Topkapı Palace. Not the polished museum version, but the real version. The secret history that most people never hear. Let us start at the beginning. 1453. Mehmed II, Mehmed the Conqueror, captures Constantinople. He is 21 years old. He has just conquered one of the most famous cities in history, and he needs a palace worthy of his achievement. So he orders the construction of Topkapı. The name means Cannon Gate Palace, named after the nearby gate where cannons were stored. Construction begins in 1459. Takes about 6 years for the initial buildings. But here is what most people do not know. Topkapı was built on the ruins of Byzantine structures, ancient foundations, old walls. Some say there are still Byzantine tunnels beneath the palace, secret passages that connect to underground cisterns and escape routes nobody knows for sure, because much of the underground structure was never fully mapped. From the beginning, Topkapı was designed with secrecy in mind: hidden doors, secret corridors, rooms within rooms. Because in the Ottoman court, secrecy meant survival. Now let us talk about the most misunderstood part of Topkapı, the harem. When most people hear harem, they imagine what? Hollywood movies, exotic women lounging around, waiting for the sultan. Wrong. Completely wrong. The imperial harem was the most powerful, most dangerous, most complex political institution in the empire. Yes, it housed the sultan's wives and concubines, but it also housed the Valide Sultan, the sultan's mother, the most powerful woman in the empire. She controlled everything in the harem, and often she controlled the sultan himself. The sultan's daughters and sisters, educated, politically savvy, often married to important officials to create alliances, hundreds of servants, women who cooked, cleaned, educated the young princes and princesses, the Kızlar Ağası, the chief Black Eunuch, one of the most powerful officials in the entire empire. We will talk about him in a moment. The harem was not about pleasure, it was about power, about producing heirs, about political alliances, about survival. And the competition? Brutal, because here is what happened in the harem. Multiple women, all hoping their son would become sultan. Because if your son became sultan, you became Valide Sultan, untouchable, powerful, wealthy. But if another woman's son became sultan, your son would probably be executed, and you, cast aside, forgotten, maybe worse. So what did women do? They competed, they schemed, they formed alliances, and yes, sometimes they killed. Poisoning was common, a slow poison added to food or drink. Nobody could prove it. The victim just got sick and died. Historical records mention multiple suspicious deaths in the harem. Favorite concubines who suddenly fell ill. Rival sons who died of natural causes. Was it always murder? No. Disease was rampant. Infant mortality was high. But was it sometimes murder? Absolutely the most famous example, Kösem Sultan, the most powerful Valid Sultan in history. She ruled for decades, and when her own son wanted to remove her from power, she was strangled in her own room at 80 years old. That was the harem. Beautiful, luxurious, and absolutely deadly. Now let us talk about the Kara Allah, the Black Eunuchs. Who were they? African men, usually from Ethiopia or Sudan, who were castrated and brought to the palace as slaves. Why castrated? Because they guarded the harem. They had access to the women. And the Ottomans wanted to make absolutely sure there could be no complications. It sounds horrific. And it was. The castration process was brutal. Many did not survive it, but those who did gained incredible power. The chief Black Eunuch, the Kızlar Ağası, was one of the most powerful officials in the empire. He controlled access to the Sultan. If you wanted to see the Sultan, you went through him. If you wanted to send a message, petition, or gift to the Sultan, it went through him. He controlled the finances of the harem. Huge amounts of money he could approve or deny expenditures. He had networks of informants. He knew everything happening in the palace. Every rumor, every plot, every secret. Some Kızlar Ağaları accumulated vast personal wealth, built mosques and fountains, were buried with honor. Others were executed when they became too powerful, or when a new sultan wanted to eliminate his predecessor's loyalists. But make no mistake, these were not just servants. They were power brokers, politicians, survivors in the deadliest political environment imaginable. Now let us talk about one of the darkest parts of Topkapı, the cafes, the cage. In the early Ottoman period, when a new sultan took the throne, he would execute all his brothers to prevent civil war. But by the early 1600s, this changed. Instead of execution, princes were locked up. In special apartments within Topkapı Palace, they called it the cafes, the cage. It sounds nicer than execution, right? At least they got to live. But imagine this life. You are a prince. You are locked in a luxurious apartment, beautiful rooms, good food, servants, but you cannot leave. Ever. You cannot govern a province, cannot lead an army, cannot marry, cannot have children. You just wait for years, sometimes decades. Some princes spent their entire lives in the cafes, 30, 40, 50 years locked up. Many went insane, genuinely insane. The isolation, the lack of purpose, the knowledge that you might be executed at any moment if you became a threat. When some of these princes finally became sultan, because sometimes the caged prince was the only heir left, they were not fit to rule. Mustafa I, for example, spent years in the cafes. When he became sultan, he was mentally unstable, could not function, was deposed twice. The cafes was not mercy, it was psychological torture, a golden cage that destroyed men's minds. Here is something most tourists do not know. Topkapı has secret tunnels, lots of them. Some connect different parts of the palace, so the Sultan could move without being seen. Some lead outside the palace walls, escape routes in case of invasion or coup. Some connect to the Byzantine cisterns beneath the city, underground water systems. You could, theoretically, escape through the sewers. Not all of these tunnels have been explored. Some were sealed centuries ago. Some collapsed. Some are considered too dangerous to enter, but they are there, and they were used. Historical records mention sultans using secret passages to escape assassination attempts, to spy on officials, to meet mistresses without anyone knowing. The palace was designed with paranoia in mind, because Ottoman sultans had reason to be paranoid. The execution spot. Let us talk about the darkest spot in Topkapı, the place where people were executed. There was no official execution chamber, but there were methods. The marble column. In one of the courtyards, executions sometimes happened here. Officials, traitors, rival princes, they would be beheaded. The column is still there. Tourists walk past it every day. The Bosphorus, weighted sacks, thrown into the water at night. Bodies never recovered. How many? Nobody knows. Strangulation, the preferred method for royalty. No blood spilled. Done quietly in a room, with a silk bowstring. Who decided who died? The Sultan. But also sometimes the Valid Sultan, or powerful viziers, or the chief Black Eunuch. Power in Topkapı was complicated and deadly. Let us talk about something more pleasant. The treasury. Today, it is a museum exhibition. You can see some of the treasures. Emeralds the size of eggs diamonds, rubies, thrones made of gold, swords encrusted with jewels. But what you see is only a fraction. At its height, the Ottoman treasury was one of the richest in the world. Tribute from conquered territories, taxes from 3 continents, gifts from foreign rulers trying to curry favor. The famous Topkapı dagger made for the Persian Shah, encrusted with enormous emeralds. It never reached him. He was assassinated. So it stayed in the treasury. The spoonmaker's diamond 86 carats, one of the largest diamonds in the world, supposedly found by a spoonmaker who traded it for 3 wooden spoons because he thought it was glass. The treasury rooms had guards, multiple locked doors, and traps. Yes, traps. Some rooms were designed so that if you opened them incorrectly, mechanisms would trigger alarms. Or worse, because theft from the Sultan was not just a crime, it was treason, punishable by death. The strange rules. Life in Topkapı was governed by incredibly strict rules, some practical, some bizarre. Silence in certain areas. In parts of the palace, servants had to communicate with hand signals. Speaking was forbidden. Why? So the Sultan would not be disturbed, and so conspirators could not whisper plots. The no-shoes rule. In certain rooms, everyone, including high officials, had to remove their shoes, a sign of respect, but also practical. Shoes make noise. Bare feet are silent. Food tasters. Everything the Sultan ate was tasted first, by a designated official who sometimes died. Poison was a real threat. No fires after dark in certain areas. Fire was dangerous in a wooden palace, but also fire could be a signal to conspirators outside the walls. The Sultan's coffee, prepared by a specific official, the kahveci basha. He was responsible for making the Sultan's coffee perfectly and for making sure it was not poisoned. Every detail was controlled, because survival in Topkapı required control. In 1856, Sultan Abdülmecid moved out of Topkapı to a new palace, Dolmabahce. More modern, more European style. Topkapı was abandoned. For decades, rooms closed, treasures locked away. In 1924, after the Ottoman Empire ended, Topkapı became a museum. Today, millions of tourists visit every year. They walk through the courtyards, see the treasury, admire the views of the Bosphorus. But most have no idea what happened in these rooms. The murders, the power struggles, the women who ruled empires from behind screens, the princes who went mad in golden cages. the eunuchs, who wielded more power than generals. And here is something interesting. Some people, guards, tour guides, maintenance workers, claim Topkapı is haunted. They report strange sounds at night, footsteps in empty corridors, whispers in the harem, cold spots in certain rooms. Is it real? Who knows? But if any place should be haunted, it is Topkapı. Hundreds of years, thousands of deaths, countless secrets. If walls could talk, these walls would scream. If this journey through the hidden history of Topkapı Palace fascinated you, if you are thinking about all the secrets buried in these beautiful walls, hit that like button, because history is not just about what we see in museums. It is about what happened behind closed doors, the power struggles, the survival tactics, the dark secrets that shaped empires. And Topkapı Palace holds more secrets than almost anywhere else on Earth. We are uncovering all these hidden histories, the places where empires rose and fell, where power was won and lost, where the real story is buried beneath the official version. So if you want more content that takes you behind the scenes of history, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment. Have you been to Topkapı Palace? What secret surprised you most? What other hidden histories should we uncover? Thanks for watching. And remember, the most beautiful places often hide the darkest secrets.